Hello, and welcome to another edition of Your Therapist Needs Therapy, the podcast where two mental health professionals talk about their mental health journeys and how they navigate mental wellness while working in the mental health field. I'm your host, Jeremy Schumacher, licensed marriage and family therapist, and today we have a repeat guest.
Woohoo!
How exciting. We have Emily Aleksy, owner-operator at Arrow Wellness. Is that a Taylor Swift reference?
No, it was before Taylor Swift started the Eras Tour. So I started it, and she
copied
was like,
you.
You're so cool.
Are you getting
I don't know, from Wisconsin.
royalties from her for that?
I should look into that. I think she will really respond to that.
Yeah.
And I definitely won't get like a cease and desist or anything.
Yeah.
I think it'll go well.
I don't think she can trademark Era.
Who knows?
That's true.
I
I'm
mean,
not an expert
she's got
on...
a lot more dollars and lawyers than I do, so
She does.
who knows?
That's true. I was just connecting a dot there that I hadn't before. I'm not a Swiftie, so might have missed a reference there.
I'm a casual
Sure.
appreciator.
We were just talking about your office and its theme, so I thought this might be a useful segue, but I guess not.
Theme.
Yeah.
What is the theme of my office, Jeremy?
White woman Instagram.
White woman Instagram.
100%.
It does feel a little critical.
Yeah.
Like calling it white woman, it's like that feels a little hurtful.
I don't think it is designed to be hurtful.
Okay.
Most of your clientele are female.
Yeah, but like
I would assume they're on Instagram.
I haven't asked necessarily. But like
Your business has an Instagram account that people follow.
it is on, yes.
Mm-hmm.
But like then what is it designed to be? Just descriptive?
Yeah. If I was sending a heavy metal fan who had long hair and wore band shirts everywhere and they wanted to go to a group that you were hosting at your practice, I would say the office is a little white woman Instagram. It's just a heads up because they wouldn't feel the heavy metal vibes when they walked in the door.
I'm not really a heavy metal person, Jeremy. I don't know.
Yeah,
if you've noticed.
there's no insults attached to it. Your office is set up the way that it makes sense for you.
Still, I just feel like the term like white woman Instagram just sounds really like shallow and like I don't know, surfacey.
Yeah, but people aren't benefiting from visiting your office because of your decor. They're benefiting by having
Maybe they are.
really great therapy.
Okay. So I can do really great therapy and look like white woman Instagram.
You're a white woman, so you get to have that, right?
Okay. It still just sounds a little judgy.
Sure. I'm not great at being kind.
Wow. You should put that on your Instagram. I'm not great at being kind, but come here for therapy.
I say to my clients often that I don't like people, and I think they're always shocked. But like, as a general rule, I'm an introvert, and I'm neurodivergent, and I don't really like people. I don't like people en masse.
And so you were like, so since I'm an introvert, I'm going to be a therapist and network and have a podcast.
Yeah. The podcast is a silly idea that just keeps going because people tune in.
Great.
Thanks, listeners. Because I don't know how to network. The podcast was all an elaborate ruse to get people to talk to me.
Clever.
A very complicated solution to not being able to send an email.
Pretty long game you got there.
Yes. And look, it's worked, right? You're part of my network now.
Yeah.
Send each other clients
I would
sometimes
like
and
to
stuff.
take credit though for like several other guests
Oh,
that you've had on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because you're an extrovert. And so I was like, who do you know that might be on the podcast?
Interesting.
You made such a face at being called an extrovert.
Yeah.
You seem social.
I think it's a clever ruse.
We're just masking on various levels.
Good at it.
How's the start of the school year been for you, who is a therapist and also has multiple children?
Straight chaos. Honestly, we have 3 kids, and all of their birthdays are right around the start of school. So my son is a late August, and my twin daughters are early September. And then we wisely decide to go on vacation every year the last week of summer. So it's like birthday, vacation, school starts, 2 more birthdays, hot mess.
Yeah.
It's typically a giant disaster.
Sure.
So it was all a giant disaster.
Yeah.
So that was a lot.
I think multiples are always a little extra chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Twins, triplets,
Yeah.
etc.
Yeah.
Because you just have multiple at the same brain development
Yeah.
stage of life.
Yeah. And they're identical. So people like mix them up all the time and lump them together.
Sure.
And they are not enjoying that currently.
Yeah.
So one of my daughters, like right before her birthday, was like, do you know what sucks about being a twin? And I was like, what? Like, do tell.
Yeah.
I'd love to know. She's like, because you always have to share your birthday. You never get it to yourself. And I was like, oh, okay. That's where we're at.
Yeah.
That's
Developmentally,
really good.
brain development and that individuation stage.
Yep. Needing some separation.
Yeah. Where does the twin come from? You or your partner's side of the family?
So my dad's a twin, but he's fraternal. And our girls are identical, which allegedly is not related. Like, identicals are like one egg that randomly splits for some magical, who knows why reason.
Sure.
So,
Yeah.
who knows?
I mean, I asked that question because twins typically, multiples run in families. There is some genetic reason for that.
Fraternal twins are always on the maternal side because it's like hyperovulation, which is releasing 2 eggs at once. You needed to know that word, didn't you?
I'm learning so much. I'm so glad I have you back on the podcast. I'm learning things already.
So many random things.
Yeah.
Would you like to know about placentas and stuff?
We can talk about placentas and stuff.
Great.
I've had 2 children, so I'm familiar. I didn't birth them. I was there. I don't recommend having a baby on a weekend when your hospital's not real staffed, because then all of a sudden you have to be really involved.
You get who you get.
Yeah. We got a student who was not a doctor at all.
Great.
And me.
Great.
Who didn't want to be involved either.
Didn't want to be a doctor.
Support.
Yeah.
Like, emotional and all that.
Like,
I didn't.
actually.
They were like, hold a leg. And I was like, oh, I wasn't planning that
More
level
like
involvement.
hands-off sort of.
Up by the
sort of
shoulders, I was going to be encouraging and get sworn at and be that person.
Great. So you had a supporting role.
I did an active role, I think. Some people are like, I want to cut the cord and like be, I don't know. That was never me.
Okay.
But I support that if
Great.
that's what people are into.
Yeah.
I think hospitals should staff on the weekends.
Yeah.
Is, I don't know, a minor thought.
Babies don't seem to abide by like a 9 to 5 work week sort of a system,
No.
like a schedule.
No. That was our first child, and the reason nobody was in the room was because they were like, first baby, it'll be a while. Mm-hmm. And my wife was like, nah, let's get out of here.
Get this show on the road. We're done.
So yeah, little student and me delivering a baby.
Great.
How exciting.
It seems to have gone okay.
Yeah, he's wonderful.
Good.
First grader now.
That's wild.
With ADHD.
That's fun.
Yeah, it's all right so far. my ADHD didn't kick into high gear until I was in 3rd grade when I didn't want to go to school anymore. Pretty
stuff to look forward to.
specifically. Yeah.
Great.
3rd grade was a big year for me. I didn't want to go to heaven. Didn't want to go to school anymore. Those were the 2 big things for me.
I mean, those are pretty big decisions as a 3rd grader.
Yeah, my parents did not support either of those choices.
They were like, no, you're going to both. You have no choices here.
Yes, I stuck with one of them.
That's great news.
How's managing the chaos of school and birthdays at the end of the year and a family vacation, which does seem like a choice that you could
It does.
do at other times.
It is a choice, and it's a privilege.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's just a lot.
How's that with managing your practice?
So I took a bunch of time off from seeing clients over the summer.
Mm-hmm.
And then kind of decided that was the right fit, and that is what I'm going to continue doing, is just doing administrative stuff. So right now that's feeling like a huge transition. Also with like return to school and birthdays and stuff, is that I'm shifting entirely what I'm doing professionally.
Yeah.
And this whole like, are you still a therapist if you don't do therapy anymore?
Oh.
Like we're getting...
What a good question.
What's my identity as a human now?
Yeah.
So it's different than I thought it would be, transitioning away from, I think, heavier than I thought it was going to be. I think more grief for me in discharging people than I expected. So it's been just a big, heavy shift.
Yeah.
And again, a choice. And it's a privilege to be able to be like, hey, this isn't the thing for me right now, and I can shift away from that and not, like, worry about losing my house or whatever else. Like, I still have a bunch of jobs to do in my business. Like, it's not like I'm just, hanging out at home and going to the pool or something. But it's a big shift.
Yeah.
Like a huge shift. And one that I really never thought I was going to make. So.
Well, I think because therapists don't talk about stuff like this very often,
Yeah.
which is why I was excited to have you on, and we joke texted a couple times about what we were even going to talk about. But like, we all know burnout's a thing.
Yeah.
We all know that there are more people leaving the profession than coming in, and yet like there aren't a lot of conversations around what that experience is like, or so to do that transition but not necessarily have a frame of reference or have seen it modeled by other people.
Right. And it doesn't feel good to like be like, so I'm burnt out and I need to make a change. Like, that feels terrible. And it, like, I think in some ways feels like a failure of like, I should have done a better job of something at some point to not feel the way that I have felt and having to make the decision that I made.
Yeah.
But I also think that it's real and it's valuable to talk about.
Yeah.
And like, in retrospect, there are things that I would have done differently and things that I would have noticed differently. But it's also just reality at this point for me. So
yeah, burnout's one of those weird things that kind of makes itself known, and there's not, I say this often to clients, like, there is no cure for burnout other than rest.
yeah. Which, like, in our culture, like, rest is laziness.
Yeah.
Like, it's not valued. It's not seen as like a practice or a necessity. It's like, okay, well, you can like sleep, but that's not what rest is necessarily.
Right.
Like, that's a portion.
That's sleep.
That's sleeping, which like your body
Requires.
literally requires, or you will die.
Yeah.
But like, actually, like, resting and slowing is something that like our culture is terrible at.
Yeah. And like rest, not taking a nap. Again, I think we think of rest as sleep all the time, but like resting your nervous system, letting your body recover and recuperate, when like modern society is go, 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 produce, produce, produce. And then you as a ADHDer have all this history of masking and like, I'm gonna work extra hard at this thing that everyone else seems to be able to do, but like it's hard for my brain for some reason. And I don't know if you're an overachiever or not, but that often goes hand in hand with that ADHD
Do you really
stuff.
not know that about me, Jeremy? Do you really? Is that not clear?
Being kind.
Okay.
That's my attempt at being kind. When I said earlier I'm not good at it.
Okay.
So yeah, like you have this work your brain has done to sort of compensate for being neurodivergent in a society that doesn't support that, to get to the point where you own a business, you're running it successfully, and then I don't know, now you're at like, oh wait, that wasn't sustainable.
This just doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
And again, there are immense amounts of privilege in being able to make that choice. Like, there are a lot of people in careers or roles where they don't have an option to scale back on clients or not see clients or whatever. It's like, you work for an agency, you have to see that number of clients. There's not,
Right.
you know, we're going to say we're like self-care and like, we really want you to do well and we're going to combat burnout and vicarious trauma and all of like, give me all the buzzwords.
Yeah.
But like, what are you actually doing to support those practices? Because nowhere that I have ever worked before has like actually really done anything other than like give you a stress ball or like a webinar.
Yeah.
And like, that's actually not
Would you like a bouncy ball instead of a desk chair? Because we read a study that said that's good for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Or like, let's do like a team building exercise. Like, no.
Yeah. I don't do a ton of organizational work anymore, but probably because organizations don't like what I have to say to them. But it's one of those...
Shocking.
You know, always this idea of like, well, what can we do to make our employees happier? Should we like stretch over lunch and offer yoga? Like, or hire more people and pay them better? Like, that probably...
No, we'd rather like give you some sandwiches.
Yeah.
And like
Yes.
tell you we care.
Right. And so, yeah, I mean, rest, and we don't do rest well. We also don't like do support well. We think there's just unlimited resources in the human and they're just supposed to produce unendingly.
Yeah. And I think especially in this field, like, there's not a good realization that like therapists are humans also and first, of like, we're not blank slates.
Yeah.
We're not people without feelings or reactions or experiences of things. We have our own crap. At the same time, we're supporting other people.
Yeah.
And that's not for our clients to know or to worry about or anything else.
Right.
But like, there still needs to be attention paid to us as entire people and not just like you live in your office.
Yeah. And I think there's a way to do therapy that is less human and more productivity based. But I think if you're doing therapy in what I would argue is a good way, a helpful way, it is a lot more taxing.
Yeah.
And requires more resources for us, the human beings who are in the role of therapist.
Yeah. I'm continually shocked at like people I see, whether it's on like Facebook groups or even I'm working on hiring other clinicians or talking to people, of like the requirements for the amount of clients that people are seeing a week, of like we have to have at least 6 billable hours a day, like
Yeah.
after cancellations, no shows, whatever. So like 6 hours, like if you're doing trauma work,
Yeah.
like
6 is my max per day. Like I will not schedule. You cannot schedule in my schedule if I already have 6 people.
And do you see people 5 days a week?
No.
Right, like 5 days a week of 6 hours of like trauma work or intake. Like, how are you fine?
I remember when I started out, I worked at a place. One of the therapists, I'm trying to think of how much identifying information I'm going to put out there. Somebody worked 3 days a week. They saw 12 clients a day.
I don't want to be your number 12.
They worked from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. and saw 12 people. And like, right. I don't.
Like, but how good of work are you really doing?
I don't think they're doing good work at like session 4.
Like, is there anything that you can do really well and attentively and
for 12
like,
hours
engaged and like a reciprocal relationship and helpful for 12 hours a day?
I think, and yeah, I think that's like the not human part is if you're like putting an assessment in front of a person, having them do it, and like not a formal assessment. Yeah. I think testing is important, but like, you know, here's this self-answer questionnaire, do that. We're going to like, I think if you're very, very, very formulaic and sort of rote in how you approach therapy, you could. Yeah. But yeah, I don't think that's good therapy.
But like, I don't know that I can, well, ADHD, but I don't know that I can do anything for 12 hours in a row.
Yeah. I was always impressed, like, how did they, like, fit in time to eat and, like, bathroom breaks and stuff. I was like, I'm running late all the time to my sessions. Yeah. Like, oh, that one went long, and now I have to go to the bathroom, so I'm going to start late. Feel free to put a record on. Like, you know, it works for kind of how I show up authentically, but it isn't that sort of, our session starts at 8 o'clock sharp. Like, that's not a thing that works well.
And also, like, I would think that you probably see this as well, but so many people coming in who are like, I saw a therapist 5 years ago, 10 years ago, whatever, and it was terrible. I felt invalidated. They didn't know who I was. They asked me the same questions all the time. Yeah. That's probably because your therapist was seeing 9, 10, 11, 12 people in a row. Yeah. Well, and like, what's the hospital
set up right now? I think like 32 people a week is like the requirement if you're at like a hospital type setting. That's too many. Yeah. That's too many people in 1 week.
If you're doing like good, engaging, like real, deep work, I'm sure there are people that could, or that would argue that they can, and it's really good work. I'm skeptical.
Yeah, also skeptical. Well, and we have plenty of clients who had bad experiences in therapy, or plenty of clients who were like went and saw a therapist for like 8 years, like once a week, and like didn't do anything. Yeah. They just went to therapy every week, like chatted.
Which is
like maybe that's meaningful. I don't know.
Yeah, but I don't know.
That's not what I consider a therapy.
Yeah.
Not that I'm the be-all, end-all, but like that's not how I, as a therapist, would want to approach helping someone.
Yeah. And I have people that I've seen for a long time, but like, and like the relationship building and the consistency of that and being able to explore relationship dynamics in a safe environment becomes like a big part of it.
Yeah.
But
being able to say, I went to therapy for this long and these are the things I've gotten out of it is different than I went for 8 years and like I don't really know what I got out of it.
Yeah.
Someone to talk to for 8 years.
Which, like, you can do that for free, too.
Yeah. That is harder to do now, I will say. Limited third spaces and late stage capitalism. We're just working towards capitalism's the problem. I mean, I know where this podcast episode is going.
Do you? Because... so far we've covered some placenta talk and now burnout, and who knows where it will go next.
Yeah. But, I mean, not being able to rest, not having this modeled for us of, like, what the experience is like, what the human side of making this transition, like, yeah. Because capitalism is a flawed system.
Well, you're LMFT, right?
Yeah.
I'm, like, social worker. So my master's program was very much like, you are going to burn out. You are going to be paid nothing. You're going to work terrible hours. You're going to, like, that was sort of, like, the underlying, like, messaging.
Was that, like, beware of that, or was that like badge
No,
of pride, we're badass social workers?
Badge of pride of like, you are going to like help the people, and you're going to be like in the trenches, and you're going to do all this stuff, and like it's going to be hard, but like you're really doing the work. Like you're doing the good things as like in almost like, and I think that's probably where the like burnout and stepping away from client work kind of feels like a failure in a way of like, that's what you're supposed to be doing is like, if you are, I don't know if it's like a good enough person or a good enough social worker or a good enough therapist, like you're going to sacrifice yourself for other people, but that doesn't actually work.
Well, and I think that glosses over what burnout actually is.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to burn out and develop a bad drinking habit, and you're going to get divorced. And what did they mean by that to these 18 to 22-year-olds or 22 to 24-year-olds, whatever, in grad school who were saying, you're going to burn out? Like, at that age, I don't know that I had a frame of reference for what that looked like. No. Like, self-care was a buzzword, but it wasn't like, this is what that actually does for your body.
Yeah, and I feel like that, at least for me, has shifted so much since having children. Because it like, they don't care that you're tired or like have a headache when you come home or like had a really hard day or whatever. Like, they still need you. Yeah. And they still want stuff, and they still have their own feelings and don't have like really any regulation skills. And like, you have to be on. Like, parenting, there's so much more stimulation in so many ways, and there's so much less time and space and ability to do the things that help you regulate or care for yourself or whatever. Yeah. Because you do have to take care of the tiny people. Like, they are not independent humans that can do that for themselves.
Right. Yeah. And it doesn't take... It's impossible to get parenting right. Not that I like the paradigm of right and wrong, but like, you're going to screw stuff up because you're human. Yeah. But also, like, there's a lot of ways that parenting can go wrong. And so, like, being off for just a little bit, like, could be a core memory for your kid. Like, so there is that risk of, like, if you're coming home burnt out every day or you're carrying that with you. I know since I shifted, added religious trauma as one of my niche areas, like, I have a lot more decompression time I need. It's not just like, it used to just be the drive home was good. Roll my windows down, crank my music up. I could roll in and be like, good. And like, some of the stuff working with trauma is like, I can't like take this vibe, this energy, not that I'm like woo woo, but like, I need to reset before I'm going home to be around my kids. Yeah.
And like, if you have kids or a kid that is neurodivergent, like, they're picking up on whatever energy that you're bringing back, like whether that's woo energy or just like physical, whatever you're holding in your body, like, they are then going to be more dysregulated. You don't have the capacity to handle that support. Not you, but like proverbial you. Yeah. Like,
but also me.
And it's also just going to spiral and be a disaster.
Yeah. You know? Or your kid is picking up on that and trying to like do something because they want to be helpful, even though that's not necessarily the dynamic we want to encourage. Right. And so, you know, I know with my little dude who's ADHD, my other little kid probably is too, but I don't want to diagnose a 3-year-old. They act a lot like they have ADHD, regardless. But my 6-year-old, like, a lot of times when he's stimming, like, I'm recognizing, like, that's a really fucking irritating thing he's doing, but it's good for him. Yeah. So, like, how do I navigate that? But then, like, he'll try and do stuff like that with, like, I'm in a bad mood or I'm coming in and I'm tired and whatever. Like, his brain goes, let's stimulate. He wouldn't use that word, obviously, but he'll be like, let's do this thing. You like pro wrestling. You like Batman. Let's go play catch. And it's like, that's nice. And also, I would like to rest.
Can we just like not?
My brain would like rest. So that's the thing that I think a lot of that self-care talk and burnout talk skips is like, it's just this like therapist in a vacuum and ignores the other life stuff that happens. Right. Toss in kids or like aging parents or both.
Other obligations, a partner. Yeah. Hobbies, you should do fun stuff too.
That's exhausting. I'm not the person to do this because I'm not good at money because it doesn't make sense to me as a concept. But like, I want to like add up what every quote unquote expert in their field says, like what healthy looks like. Like, what does a healthy diet look like? What does healthy exercise look like? Like, what do all these things, rest, recovery, etc. Like, what do all those things look like? And like, how much in our modern America do those things cost? Right. And how much time does that take? Because like, there's no way, even if we got rid of the 40-hour work week and we're 32-hour work week, like there's no way that stuff would all fit. Right. Let alone that anyone could afford it who's not making, I'm going to say upwards of 6 figures, probably pushing into 7. Like, you know, the movie actors who have somebody who makes every meal for them and does their exercise routine and like schedules all their shit.
Right. Well, that's what pisses me off when people are like, "Oh, Beyonce has the same 24 hours in a day." No, she doesn't. Like, chronologically, she's got 24 hours in a day, but she's also got 72 people that help her with all the stupid shit that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
Or that is exhausting, or that I don't want to attend to, or whatever. Like, that's not equal. That's not the same.
Right. Yeah. My experience is, went to a University of Minnesota, so being around D1 athletes, like, that's what health looks like. Mm-hmm. You have your practice, you have your workout, you have somebody who massages your sore muscles, mm-hmm. who takes care of that stuff. You have an ice bath, you have a meal prepared for you that's healthy and meets your nutritional needs, and like all that stuff's organized. D1 athletes have their schedules set for them because the school doesn't want classes to interrupt with practice time. Right. So like all that stuff's taken care of. There is a team of people taking care of their just physical health and wellness so they can show up and play a game. And like our society's not, again, for sports, which make a lot of money.
I got a lot of feelings about that.
Yeah, me too. I like sports, and I have a lot of feelings about that. Like that's dumb that the only place where that exists, and I would say like the ultra wealthy, but like the only place that exists is like those upper echelons of money making mm-hmm. games. Mm-hmm. A lot of our stuff, the highest paid state employee in almost every state is the head football or head basketball coach at a D1 college, because there's state employees, and those are the state employees who make the most.
It's a literal game, and like I get that it's super enjoyable and like fun and like engages a lot of people, and it's a big money maker for the university, and like yes, we want to encourage people moving their bodies and doing things they love and all sorts of stuff, but it also like I think it's so intense to the point that that is not healthy. Like, there may be physical health there. Mm-hmm. What is that doing to your mental health? To be at that level of intensity, to feel like there's so much pressure on you to, mm-hmm. like, people with not fully developed brains.
Yeah.
Who, like, should they be making those kinds of decisions for themselves? I don't know. That's not my area, but, like...
Right. And then, like, to professionally get concussions.
Yeah. Like, there was... My husband was talking about... There was, a player who, like, recently got another concussion and had a seizure on the field.
Yeah.
And he was going to, like, decide... He had the same thing happen before and was going to, like, quit the sport and then decided to stay in it and just sign, like, a $160 million contract. So now, like, do you continue, like, pulverizing your brain for $160 million? Like, who needs $160 million, number one? That is a stupid number that means nothing.
Well, and that's the Dolphins quarterback, Tua Tagovailoa. He had a history of...
You know the things.
I do. I know football. He had a history of concussions and decided not to retire. Yeah. And yeah, it's a big contract. Second game of the year. Why he dove headfirst is a bit of a mystery, but also like, right, like there is no safe way to play the game of football. But
it's like also been drilled into you that you sacrifice your body for this ball, for this game, because other people are relying on you.
That is ultimately about like the owner making a profit.
Right.
Because like that's capitalism. Just getting on my soapbox here. How are we on the NFL off of burnout? But no, this is like...
Again, went from placentas to football.
Yeah, the idea of like putting your body on the line, like whether it's you're a coal miner or you're a sex worker or you're a football player, like that, where the money is going is not to those people. We can point to the football athletes who have the crazy contracts and like they don't have health care for life. They don't have any other income. Mm-hmm. I'm going to throw a little bit of shade and say they don't have any other usable skills. Some of them do, but a lot of athletes go to school for their sport. Mm-hmm. Not all of them even get their college degree, let alone a useful degree. Mm-hmm. So I think it's one of those things where, like, yeah, we can point to the athletes. I don't think it's the athletes making a lot of money that are the problem. I think it's the ownership and all of that stuff. I don't think we should be asking people to get multiple concussions for all of our enjoyment.
I would agree with you on that.
Yeah. Whoops. We set up our society wrong.
This is definitely the only example of this. And there's not millions of other ways that we've done it wrong.
Yeah.
At all.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, when you think about, check out this segue. When you think about burnout, like again, so that's the life of a D1 or a professional athlete who has all those resources and is getting compensated well. Mm-hmm. I would still say probably not worth it long run to get CTE, but like also think about the average person who has none of those resources, who is constantly worried about how they're going to pay their bills or what's coming next, and like that we don't have a safety net or social support for these people. Like, your nervous system is going to be fried. We're living in contrived anxiety 24/7.
Right, with all of the pressures in different ways and expectations of different people and all the ways that society is set up wrong. And me as a, educated, able-bodied, cishet white woman, like, I have a lot of privileges that a lot of people don't have.
Yeah.
Like, I have a partner who carries our health insurance. So, like, I don't have to do that. Like, I have some family support around here to help with, like, there are lots of, like, layers of privilege that I have to be able to make the decision to step back from something that's really burning me out that most people do not.
Yep.
And so if you're in that situation and you're like, whether you realize or not that you're super burnt out, there aren't options there. And there's not a conversation happening about, like, what can you reasonably do? Because, like, taking a bubble bath or, like, going on vacation is, number one, not super helpful and not doable for a lot of people.
Right.
Like, not having PTO or time off of work or the, help with childcare or the potential loss of income or whatever else is detrimental.
Yeah.
And so you have to keep going. So what conversations are we having? What better supports are we putting into place for people?
Yeah.
And at least what conversations can we start to have for, I think, parents in general, because I think that does impact things in a different way, to just set things up a little bit better for people.
Yeah.
It's just not good.
Yeah. And I think as therapists, and like, I try not to put therapy on a pedestal because we gave lots of examples already of bad therapy happening out in the world.
Yeah.
But like, there aren't a ton of space holders for these things. And so, like, yeah, go to therapy and yeah, take your bubble bath and yeah, do yoga or mindfulness. But like, that's symptom management.
It's Band-Aid.
And like, I don't like that because I would like to think my work has been very meaningful, and it has for people, but like, also it's not addressing some of the core issues at why this keeps happening. For years, I've made the sort of dark humor joke that like, I have really good job security. And like, yeah, because our system is set up for people to be unwell.
Right. And I think, like, that happens with a lot of people that I have seen, especially neurodivergent people, where you are doing all of this masking in different ways to try to operate in a world that is not set up for you.
Yeah.
And so, like, if that amount of energy, that many, like, spoons of the finite amount that you have are going towards just trying to, like, function, just that, there's not a whole lot left.
Yeah.
And then there's other stressors, and there's I got pulled over, or there's my kid is sick, or there's whatever else.
Right.
And how are you digging out of that hole?
Yeah. My kid is sick. Do I send them to school sick and potentially spread that? Or do I, because I can't afford the day off of work?
Right.
Yeah.
Or other people are relying on me for whatever reason. I don't feel like I can.
Yeah.
I will get pressure if I call into, there's so
Yeah.
many layers.
And some of this is uniquely American. I mean, other places have not sorted all of this, but have a month of guaranteed PTO when you're first hired, not after 8 years of experience, or like the jobs that hire people and say you get 3 days off for the first 5 years you're employed here. Like, fuck that. Like, don't work there. Then again, that's privileged, right?
Yeah.
That I can just say, don't take that job.
Just work somewhere else. It's fine.
But also, like, yeah, these systems are designed to burn people out as if, like, they're just replaceable. Amazon is hiring and replacing warehouse workers beyond, like, what they will run through the entire population at their current rate.
I'm not going to go work there.
Same.
So,
Strong pass.
yeah, firmly no.
I will say, my younger ADHD self might have liked that. I worked at a golf course on the grounds crew, and I loved the, like, repetition of mowing the lawn, the big, doing all the lawns for 8 hours a day.
A job like that is, like, feels really appealing. Like, at this point when you're, it's me being, like, burnt, I was like, something that, like, I can just, like, go do, and then it's done, and I can see that it's done. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah. 16-year-old me loved that. Yeah. It was outside, not in a warehouse, so I'm not recommending working at Amazon for...
Yeah, I don't think you should.
And the golf courses pay terribly, so that's the issue. I was at... gosh, I'm just calling people out today. I was at a very bougie country club.
Yeah.
It was very expensive to be a part of.
I think they do tend to be expensive.
Yeah, there were no black members.
Okay.
There was one caddy who was black. He was the head caddy, and so everyone like made a really big deal about like we're not racist. We have our one black friend, and paid their grounds crew $6.25 an hour back in the day. That was minimum wage. That's how old I am.
Even now it's like $7.25.
Yeah, that's
like
right. Which you can't. But like that I liked that job as a high schooler and a college student over the summer, but like was predicated on working overtime. Like you made money by working more than 40 hours a week. So like, hooray, overtime. I mean, it paid more, but like, that's not great for your body. I could do that at 18 because my body didn't know any better. But working with the people who, you know, had a degree in botany and took care of all the trees on the course, like that's terrible for their body. Yeah. And then to have to like survive on overtime.
I also think like the messaging in that of like, your worth increases the more you exhaust yourself. Mm-hmm. Like, we'll
pay you more.
The hour of work means it's worth more once you've already done 40 of it.
Yeah.
Like then you're like, isn't that gross?
Yeah.
You like made a face. I was like,
I did make a face.
It didn't sink well, did it?
It started so innocently. I was like, I liked my outdoor job when I was younger, and then you're like, oh no, that was terrible too. Awesome. But yeah, I mean, social work.
Encouraging conversation.
I know. I don't know how we're gonna land this on a positive note.
I'm excited to find out.
You talked about social work schooling. Shout out to Rachel Jones, who we both know, Cup of Tea Psychiatry. She talks about like in her NP schooling, like it almost is kind of like prepping you for trauma. Yeah. Like there's some trauma bonding that happens in school as you're learning, like this is what you're just gonna have to deal with on a regular basis, and like trying to normalize that. Right. I speak at a local college every semester. I'm invited in to talk to 5th-year athletic trainers. And one of the things I talk about is self-care because like that's another, you're the first person in, you're getting the ice bath ready, you're doing all these things, you're the last person to go home at night. It's that very like badge of honor thing. And like, you don't get paid more for that. You get a pizza party at the end of the year if your athletes do well, which has nothing to do with you as the trainer. Like
it's not like your ice baths were better and so they did better.
Right. And so, yeah. And like the professor always invites me in because like, yeah, this is like a message they need to hear. They're not getting it anywhere else. Which like I would say once at the end of their training is probably not enough. But hey, maybe it shifts the thinking a little bit.
Hopefully it lands for somebody.
Yeah. But like, pick a profession. Like my guess is it's in there. I have people, and again, like I don't take insurance, so like have people who are very well off, have access to a lot of resources, and like not thrilled. It's not that money translates to happiness for everyone. These people are still fried. They're stressed out. They go on vacation because they can afford it and can't relax because they don't know what that feels like, because to get where they've got was not an easy or stress-free experience, and you can't just like light switch that on and off. No,
like your nervous system's so fried that like a week, even if you're like on a beach relaxing,
you're stressing about all the emails waiting for you when you get back.
Right. Or like I can't let that down knowing that it's going to pick right back up again in a couple days.
Yeah.
Like you've spent weeks and months, years frying your nervous system, and like you said, that's not just a switch.
Yeah. And like for me with my ADHD, like I can't not respond to stuff because like I won't then.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, like the system that works for me is don't read the text until you have time to respond and then respond right away.
Yeah.
Don't open that email.
Or it will never happen.
Or right. Until you can respond or it won't happen. Don't close those 18 tabs you have open because you need them, but once they're closed, you will forget about them.
They never existed.
Yeah. That system's falling apart for me lately. My tabs keep closing.
One of my employees, her computer shut down unexpectedly and she lost all of her tabs. And she was like devastated.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel you. I'm sorry for your loss.
Because sometimes your history will just group them for you, and sometimes it won't. I don't understand technology.
Same.
This wasn't fun. What do we do?
I
mean, we've identified all the problems that other people have identified, and
right.
we're not treading new ground here.
Correct.
We're just talking about it from a different lens of like, hey, we help people, and also.
But I think it's important to know like overall that being a helper does not exclude you from needing help, and I think like that's like the whole theme of your entire podcast.
Yeah. Your therapist needs therapy. How about that?
But that looks different for everybody,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I think also one of the things that I have learned in this process is that you're allowed, and it is okay to shift gears and make different decisions, even if they're decisions you never thought that you would make. I never would have guessed, even 6 months ago, that I would not see individual clients even for a little while.
Yeah.
Wouldn't have thought it as an option. If you would have told me, I would have been like, absolutely not. That's never going to happen.
Yeah. I'm sitting here as a therapist right now being like, yeah, I will never actually stop seeing clients because I've tried or thought about it and took a job as a full-time full-time coach at a college program and like turned that into a mental health job so I could still see people.
But I don't want to get to the point where I am the person doing the really bad therapy.
Yeah.
And so, like, as not good as it has felt to make the decision to step back from that and really, like, take a look at what was going on for me and how it was feeling and how it was impacting, like, my family, parts of the work that I was doing, how I was feeling.
Yeah.
Like, I would much rather do that and change my mind and step back from something that I never thought I was going to do, even if it's not really what I want, than be the person that is doing the really bad therapy.
Because that identity as being helpful is more important than a job title.
And I think, like, at this point, like, me being okay is more important than a job title.
Yeah.
You know, like, I'm helpful to no one if I am, like, burnt out and disgruntled and resentful and, like, that's not good therapy for anybody. I'm not then a good employer to my employees.
Right.
I don't want my supervisees to be like, that's going super good for her. Or, like, she's terrible at all. It's like, I don't want that for them.
Yeah.
I don't
This
want to
is
be
my
like
future 15 years from now.
Model to the people around me. I don't want to be cranky with my kids.
Yeah.
I don't want them to look back at it and be like, our mom spent a whole lot more time at work and being burnt out from work than she spent with us.
Well, and I think that's a shift, I would say, culturally from like the older generations. I'm just being ageist right now. The older generations who have the like, well, we lived through it. So it's like, yeah, with a bunch of unresolved trauma and you traumatized your children and all this other stuff, like you survived it. Mm-hmm. If we can do it a different way, wouldn't that be better?
And I feel like from kind of the previous generation, there's a lot of this message of like, you want better for the generation after you. Mm-hmm. And the way to do that was working really hard and having more money. Yeah. And I think now the shift is, I want better for the generation after me, but in terms of like rest. Yeah. And like really knowing yourself. Yeah. And choosing the things that are right for you regardless of what is expected of you or what somebody else thinks you should do. Yeah.
Well, our millennial generation learned there wasn't more money, so...
Yeah, there's actually not.
That messaging...
Well, unless
that messaging
like,
kind of fell apart.
The commissioner of the NFL, he seems to have a lot.
Sure.
Or like Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
They have a lot of dollars.
If you're born into it.
Yeah.
It's like a status effect. It's a box that gets checked at birth, either. Yeah. Wealthy or not.
Or not.
Those are the options. Yeah. Yeah. But it is. I mean, like, rest, prioritizing that is a shift. Mm-hmm. I think it's still... You've mentioned privilege a lot. Like, I don't think everyone gets to that point. We can say it's cultural and it's generational shifts, but also we're college educated, grad school educated mm-hmm. people who like mm-hmm. are approaching it from a place of stability. Whereas I know when like starting out working at a homeless shelter, I was doing like mindfulness for those folks. Mm-hmm. And like, I tell this story a lot cause it's like kind of cringy, but like that's how I learned how to do therapy. Mm-hmm. And that's not what those people needed at all. Right. Not that mindfulness is bad for people. Right. But if you're homeless, you have other issues. Mm-hmm.
And, like, doing some mindfulness is not going to solve the systemic issues that are keeping you in the place that you're in.
Correct. Yeah.
Like, it's great. It's also not going to solve it.
Yeah. And I wasn't doing trauma work or trauma informed at that point either. So, like, really missing a lot. Shock. Me at 20 didn't know what he was doing.
What?
Yeah. Rest is important.
It is. I read a book that the name of is going to escape me right now, but there was a passage in it about, like, sometimes as the helper, like, it's not your job to take people to the next level. Kind of this, like, visualization of a mountain of, mm-hmm. like, my job right now is to, like, tend the fire and, like, be the support for people to come back to someday. I am not the person taking you up to the next level of the mountain. Yeah. So that's kind of how I've tried to frame it for myself a little bit of like,
Yeah.
it's not that I suck completely. It's that my role was to get you to here, and then somebody else is going to take you the rest of the way.
Yeah. And I think I talk about like healing in community a lot more now than I did earlier in my career. And like that, like, yeah, it's not your therapist or your parents or any one person who's going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
It's different people in different roles.
Yeah. And sometimes somebody's role is to just get you to the next person.
Yeah.
To support you through now.
Yeah. So how's the come down from the burnout? You're still doing a lot. You're still running a business. You're still a mom. You're still a partner.
Yeah.
How's rebalancing self-care with the heaviness of the experience and all of that stuff?
It is okay. Like it's a lot to think about. It's a lot to, I think, process of like, there's been a lot of reflections of like, how did I get to this point?
Mm-hmm.
And what are the things that I want to prioritize, and what are the things that I want for myself, and what are the things that I want for the other people around me? What kind of business owner do I want to be? What kind of parent do I want to be? What kind of partner do I want to be?
Yeah.
What kind of friend do I want to be? So I think that right now it's kind of recalibrating and just letting myself be in the uncertainty, which is not my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Don't love it. Would not recommend to a friend, but it's necessary.
Yeah.
And it's necessary to just not know for right now. And let things just take some time to settle and see where they go.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a lot, and it's also okay.
Yeah. I like that not knowing. I mean, I don't personally.
Right.
I'm very
personally
much
hate it.
wanting to know all of the things all of the time. But there's, I don't know, sifting into trying to be more comfortable in that discomfort, I think is helpful to people.
Yeah, because I do think that that is one of the reasons for the level of burnout that I got to, was feeling like it needs to be more, and feeling like there needs to be a plan all the time, and a direction, and like a goal, and a next step, and like, it also can just be.
Yeah. And I think that, we're not wired for that. We have seasons. We're mammals. And there's a time to gather a harvest. There's a time to plant. There's a time to hibernate. Like, we don't have that in our late stage capitalism. It's go, 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 produce, produce, produce. But like, that's not biologically how we're wired. That's not what our bodies do naturally.
And I think especially for women who cycle through a month, like there's so much variation in energy and motivation and need for rest and need for nourishment in all sorts of different ways that our culture doesn't support either.
Yeah. Yeah. Shocking that a system set up by males is not very in touch with our bodies.
It's surprising.
Yeah.
To no one.
Yeah. I don't have a nice bow to put on this, but I think it's good because like this is the reality. Mm-hmm. And these are the conversations that I think we need to have.
I do too. And I don't think that they are like defeatist, sort of fatalistic, catastrophizing conversations. I think there's a need for that authenticity of just...
It's unpleasant, but it's good.
Which seem like competing ideas, but I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's good for, people to talk about there's different ways to do therapy. Mm-hmm. There's different ways to be a helper. Mm-hmm. And that can look different over different times of your career. Mm-hmm. I think on some level, a lot of people know that and understand your niche might change over the years and you might weave your way into different employment opportunities. But like this idea of therapist means you're sitting in your chair with your client on the couch and that's the only thing that qualifies as therapy. Like, I think it's silly.
I do too.
And I think broadening it to healing is like, that looks different for so many different people and we need so many different healers for those people who need it in different varieties of ways.
Yeah. And I think one way to do that is supervising or helping people that are earlier in the careers, like whether that's formal or whether that's just conversations and support of like, I didn't get good clinical supervision. I got like sort of case managing, check a box, what is happening with this person? Not like, how are you as a human?
Right.
What is this process like for you? What are you learning about yourself? What feels good to you? What feels icky? What are like, and noticing the things about yourself. That is not something that I got.
Yeah. Same. I did case consultation with my supervisor because I was the only MFT on staff, so I gave them ideas for all their couples. That was my supervision.
It's not
Really good.
great supervision. Like, I'm sure you had really helpful stuff to say, and I'm glad that they learned from you.
It was exceedingly clever, but as I said, I didn't know what I was doing when I was that young.
Right. Or, like, the ability to just, like, explore, like, how did that feel for you with that client? Like, what does that hit on for you?
Yeah.
And not, like,
I mean,
No, you're not allowed to have feelings.
I was doing Christian counseling. It
Ooh.
wasn't a thing we were doing back then. I was
Great.
early in my life. We didn't do feelings. Jeez.
Okay. So we're doing therapy without feelings. I'm curious about that.
I mean, there's a reason I've shifted to religious trauma. Some of it is lived experience, first and foremost. Yeah. But yes, and I think this is a bugaboo of mine, like the predatory nature of therapy, that people are selling this stuff now. It is a need, but within a capitalistic system, here's our subscription model for you to pay for our... And, like, I support people paying their bills. Don't get me wrong. I've got a Patreon for the podcast. Like, go support me. But also, like, there's so much stuff where I think it's much more about community and building your network and finding your people. If it's formal consultation like you're talking about, again, there might be a cost associated with that. But, like, to find your people, it doesn't need to be, how do we monetize this? Or how do we turn this into a side hustle or a passive income?
And I think that, like, that's a really tricky line to continue walking of, like, because, and I think especially as a social worker, it was like, you're going to be underpaid, and, like, you give your knowledge and you give your support without the expectation of, like, good compensation. Of how do you sort of uncouple your worth, your expertise, your support with, I should be paid nothing, and not swing completely in the other direction of, I deserve to be paid for every single thing I do, especially as a white person.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many layers of...
Yeah.
We could...
And not just, I deserve to be paid, but also, like, turning everything into an income stream.
Yeah.
Like, sometimes giving back to your profession, not because you're required to, but because you're in a space where you can.
Right.
And again, that speaks to privilege, that speaks to resource management, etc. Like, but yes, people who can give back, or taking on an in-training therapist and mentoring as opposed to pay me for consultation. Like, I don't think we have a good system in our field for what mentorship looks like.
Yeah.
We do consultation, we do let me help you get your hours, but we don't have, like, here's how you can tap into 2 previous generations of therapists and learn from their mistakes and save yourself a bunch of time.
And how do you continue to be you and a healthy you within that, in whatever healthy is to you?
Yeah.
And still do the things that you love and feel like you are a version of yourself that you really enjoy being.
Yeah.
Without burning yourself out, without feeling like you've sold your soul, without feeling like, you're not valued, without, all of that stuff, which gets cemented for so many people early in our careers.
Yeah. Which we don't have the answers for, but I will say I'm closer to saying confidently that happens in a team. You need your village, you need your community.
Yeah.
Beyonce has her 72 people.
She's probably lonely, though.
Do
any of them really know her?
That seemed like a random number you threw out, but I locked in on it.
It just, like, yeah.
It's probably because it's a biblical number.
Is it?
It's my religious trauma. Yeah.
How is it a biblical number?
Oh, gosh. Something in Revelation about...
72 somethings?
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah. The people who seem like they have all their shit together probably don't, but also the reason they seem like they do is probably because they have resources. They have their team, they have their community.
And there are ways to find community that aren't paying for it and isn't doing stuff for you. Yeah. Like, it's camaraderie, it's validation, it's somebody seeing you for what's going on and who you are and how you feel, and not being able to fix it. Yeah. Because you can't, but, like, getting it and seeing that you're having a hard time. I found, like, about random... Hi, Crows. I know you're going to listen to this later. Mom group that we call the Crows. There's 8 of us from different parts of the country, and I talk to them, like, all day, every day. Like, they know, like, all the things, and they are such a, like, I probably would have died before now without them, truly. They're, like, my people. Yeah. Like, they're it. They're supportive at any time of day, for any reason. They're always on my side.
Yeah, I've talked to my wife recently about this, that, like, moving into owning my own practice was awesome for my own mental health, but one of the shifts that I didn't see coming and wasn't looking for is like the community. I have a weird network of therapists who I'm very connected to through the podcast. My elaborate ruse to build a network as an introvert neurodivergent person did work, because I've interviewed all these neurodivergent therapists. Neurodivergent brains find each other. That's part of the community. So I have much better support from therapists who I respect and like and who know me personally than I ever have before. I have a personal community that I didn't have previously. So like working in a space that's values aligned with me, that gives me a lot more free time that I can be intentional with, has led to me connecting to a lot more social support than I've had previously.
Yeah. And that's really hard to do as an adult.
Yeah.
Especially without like a...
Shout out to all my neurodivergent folks who know that I'm talking about them, that I'm just like, oh.
You know, they're like, wait, is it me? Like, is it...
Yeah.
Is it I think... Wait.
Joked, I was at a conference with a bunch of pagans, and we were joking about all the pagans who also have bird tattoos. And, like, there was a really high percentage of us who had
bird tattoos.
Some neurodivergence and a bird tattoo.
You know, you gotta find your people.
Find your bird tattoo people.
Neurodivergent pagans with bird tattoos, like that's...
Yeah.
That's
and that,
village.
Yeah. You're crows. Bird-based. Maybe it's just all birds.
It could be. It really could be.
Title of my next book that I won't finish.
It's all birds.
It's just all birds. That I'll write 3 chapters of sitting down in one sitting and then never revisit.
So many questions about what would be in that book.
Every book I've started. Yeah. Well, this was good. I think we can end on birds. I'm happy with that.
Yeah. So in summary, birds.
Birds.
The end.
Full stop. You're not taking new clients, but you employ a bunch of lovely humans who are taking new clients. Where can people go for that setup and see your office, which is
whiteladywellness.com. It's not. Don't go there. That's not it.
We don't know what that website is.
I don't know what that is. Don't go there. Yeah. I would like to say that I've done a really good job of hiring people, and I truly, truly admire all the people that I work with, and they're fantastic. So arrowwellnesstherapy.com. I don't even know my own website anymore.
Yeah. Brain fog.
Overall specialize in perinatal mental health, trauma, stress, anxiety, fertility, couples, all sorts of stuff. We basically see people kind of across the lifespan who are looking for something a little bit different. So
yeah. Our
office does look like White Lady Wellness, according to Jeremy.
It does.
Which is hurtful. And we'll be fine. I think it's pretty, so.
Yes, and you also, one of the things that I love, and the reasons I know your space so well is because I ran a group out of your space. A lot of community support, not just individual therapy, available for people. So.
Yeah, so we're trying to get a perinatal group going. I'm going to, as much as we kind of talk smack about mindfulness, going to get a monthly mindfulness virtual thing going. And really just want to create spaces where people can be and not necessarily like just do therapy or do all the hard things, but just find other people that feel good to be around in a space that hopefully feels good to be in.
Kelsey does the full moon circle.
She does. It's so fun.
Pagans with bird tattoos.
Yeah. I mean, you could do a bird tattoo pagan group if you wanted to. Maybe. Okay.
Now that we're thinking about it. Write a book, do a group.
Yeah.
There's options.
So Full Moon Circle, the next one is October 16th. They're on Wednesdays. So it's Kelsey who works in a practice and then an acupuncturist who works in the area as well. And so it's all sorts of full moon information. They kind of come from each of their backgrounds and talk about how that comes together with Chinese medicine and mental health and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
So it's really fun.
Different healers for different folks.
Yeah.
And the parent and play.
That was our intern, so that's not going on anymore right now.
Never mind. No,
you can't come
no
to that.
such thing. I prepped really well for this episode.
A Bringing Baby Home, which is a Gottman
Love it
program. So there's a session of that's going to be starting mid-October.
So some groups coming up in October.
Yep.
That sound really great.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Emily, thanks for coming back on.
Thanks for having me.
What a delight. And to all our wonderful listeners, thanks for tuning in and bearing with us for another week. I'll be back next week with another new episode. Take care, everyone.